Amen.
This month leading into Christmas, as we're working through the Advent season, we're talking about and thinking about the tension between what is already and what is not yet. We're wrestling with this being caught between two places and two times. And this is really the story of Jesus. We know that at Christmas, Jesus was born, Jesus lived. We have established an already where we've learned and internalized the story of Jesus and met who Jesus is. But yet, what is not yet, what we await, what we anticipate, is the return of Jesus. And we don't know what that return will look like or when that return will come. So we are caught between what has been already actualized, what we know, what we can stake and put a stake in, and what we anticipate and long for and hope for. And we know that just as Jesus was born and Jesus will return, our own story is a story of already and not yet. We have struggles and brokenness and illness and disease and unmet hopes and expectations. We can articulate and talk about those. But yet we also anticipate that Jesus will return and remake all things, that he will see our struggles, our hurts, our pains, our illnesses, and he will make all things right. And so the story of what is already and not yet is a story of anticipation and hope, but it's also a story of waiting and preparing as well. Today's story, the text, is a parable in Matthew chapter 25, verses 1 through 13. And it's one about preparation, where some have prepared thoroughly and some have only prepared to a point. And those who have not done their work of preparing are exposed when the chaos comes, when the story unravels just a little bit. And so the story is the parable of the 10 virgins. And we're going to read this text together. It's in Matthew chapter 25, verses 1 through 13. And I invite you, if you would, to stand with me as we honor the reading of the word of the Lord today. Matthew chapter 25, verses 1 through 13. At that time, the kingdom of heaven will be like 10 virgins who took their lamps and went out to meet the bridegroom. 5 of them were foolish, and 5 of them were wise. The foolish ones took their lamps, but they did not take any oil with them. The wise ones, however, took oil in jars along with their lamps. The bridegroom was a long time in coming, and they all became drowsy and fell asleep. At midnight, the cry rang out, "Here's the bridegroom, come out to meet him." Then all the virgins woke up and trimmed their lamps. The foolish one said to the wise, Give us some of your oil, our lamps are going out." "No," they replied, "there may not be enough for both us and you. Instead, go to those who sell oil and buy some for yourselves." But while they were on their way to buy the oil, the bridegroom arrived. The virgins who were ready went in with him to the wedding banquet, and the door was shut. Later the others also came. "Lord, Lord," they said, "open the door for us." But he replied, "Truly I tell you, I don't know you. Therefore keep watch, because you do not know the day or the hour." This is the word of the Lord.
Thanks be to God.
Thanks be to God. You may be seated. Today's Sunday in Advent is about peace, and this story is about a disruption of peace. It's about a schedule, a timing, a place that these women are supposed to be. And when they get there, they find what they're waiting for has been delayed. And it gets delayed through dusk, into the evening, into darkness. Their waiting becomes so long that night falls, and they fall asleep. And it isn't until midnight before the call and the cry that they'd been waiting for comes. They wait a long time because the bridegroom is late. So the story goes from the story of what appears to be a wedding banquet, a celebration, a party, into quickly a story of camping. Now, I find camping to be a controversial topic. Some people love camping, some people hate camping. Some people love sleeping in tents out in the outdoors. Some people will only sleep at the Holiday Inn. Camping is controversial. And so when I thought about this idea of preparedness and what it's like to anticipate what could be a long night and what it means to prepare and to get ready, I thought of a scene from one of my favorite TV shows. The show is called Parks and Recreation. And Leslie is a hard-driven, type A personality who has run out of ideas, so she makes all of her coworkers go on a camping trip with her, and they all have very, very different ideas of what camping means. And so this is a scene from going camping where they all come at different levels of preparedness for the night in front of them. Check this scene out. Who was prepared? Tom seems like he was prepared until he didn't think about the amount of energy that he needed to get through the night. Ben seemed unprepared, bringing just a sleeping bag to put on the floor. It is darkness and time and waiting that exposes our ability to be prepared. And this story is the story of preparation, but it's an odd story to say the least. It doesn't take too much reading into the story to start wondering what in the world is really going on here. For example, at first blush, it kind of smells like some sort of first century episode of The Bachelor. What's going on with these 10 virgins waiting outside of a wedding for a bridegroom to come? Why are some of them bringing enough oil to get through the night and some of them not? How much oil does it take to start a lamp? If I carried this out, what exactly is the oil supposed to represent in this story? The recommendation that I read that I think is important, especially with all parables, is to not get lost in the weeds and the details of the story. It's really complicated to dig into this parable and try to make one-to-one comparisons from everything to something else. And so don't ask yourselves when reading this, what is the oil? There are some people who say it's good works and other people who say it's grace. Why is there one groom and 10 brides? It's a bizarre concept here. Or are they not brides at all? Are they just bridesmaids also waiting on the bride? The bride isn't talked about. What's that all about? Why don't they just share the excess oil? Like, come on, be a team player, am I right? It's not like there's a Target open at midnight for them to go to find more oil at. Who's this salesman who's going to be okay with being knocked on the door at midnight asking to purchase oil? The issue with all parables is that they don't work as math problems. You can't just line it all up and say, oh, this means this and that means that, and this is exactly what's trying to happen here. Parables are stories with symbolism for sure, but they're meant to evoke rather than explain. They're trying to pull feelings out of you. They're trying to pull experiences, imagination out of you, rather than just simply explaining away what is happening. And so what is this parable trying to pull out of us? What is the point of what's going on here? Well, it seems to me what's of extreme importance, the centrality of this parable, is the fact that you have 10 women who have a schedule and are expecting something to happen. They have been invited or they've been tipped off. They're where they belong, and they expect the bridegroom is going to show up at a certain time. If the bridegroom comes on time, they are all fully prepared for the night. If the schedule goes off the way that they're told, they're all ready to go. They're where they belong, they have their lamps, they're ready to wait. The problem, the tension in the text, isn't whether or not they're where they belong or they're waiting for the right bridegroom. The tension in the text is when the delay comes. It's the delay that's the problem in this text. If the bridegroom is on time or early, no one gets weeded out as foolish or wise. They're just the 10 virgins who are where they belong for the event that they belong at. It's the delay that brings about the trouble. And it seems to me that it's the delay of the bridegroom that Jesus is trying to invite us to think about here. Remember, we talked about Matthew 25 last week as well, and this text in Matthew sits in a very, very interesting place between Jesus' entrance into the city of Jerusalem, celebrated as king, and his crucifixion just a few days later. Remember, Jesus is telling these parables to his followers, preparing them for the fact that he is about to go away. He's going to die. He's going to be crucified. Then he'll be resurrected and ascended back to heaven. He's preparing his followers for a delay, for waiting, for patience. Now, this is the part where these texts always get me because I hate delays. I hate being patient. I hate waiting in all ways, shapes, and forms. Delays drive me crazy. Just this week, I was driven crazy by a delay. I was driving to Washington, D.C., which I know what you're thinking. That was my first mistake. Just bear with me here. So we're driving down 295 to go to D.C., and there was an accident. I know, you're shocked. And so 295 is backed up for miles and miles and miles. And we are moving at like 2 miles an hour. And it turns out to be like a 30-minute delay on an already annoying stretch of road, right? Now, okay, I'm annoyed enough at the accident, but I can get over accidents. They happen, right? Accidents happen. So we finally get to the point that we move past the police officers and the accident, and we are now within viewing distance of the District of Columbia. The speed limit is 55, and you know how when you get past the accident, you can speed up, right? So we start moving. We're going. Most of us are driving like 65 miles an hour. You want to know why? Because all the cops are back there. We're moving. This is great. Finally, after all of this wait and delay, until I run up against this absolute idiot who is now in open freeway driving 52 miles an hour in a 55 mile an hour zone. Have you not been delayed enough today? What is going on with this guy? And then you pull up close and everyone else is going around this. Oh, he's in the fast lane too. That was the other thing. So everyone is cutting around me going 70 miles an hour to get around him, and I'm stuck behind this guy who apparently is enjoying the delays of the day. Drives me bonkers. Absolutely nuts. I hate being delayed. I hate patience. I'm terrible with patience. And here we have this text here that's inviting us to imagine delay is coming and patience will be a virtue. Patience will even be necessary. So, what are we being patient for? The bridegroom shows up. The bridegroom eventually makes it to where he belongs. The 10 virgins have been waiting, and they appear to have been waiting patiently. It is at the cry of midnight where you hear, the bridegroom has arrived, get up, come on in, that everyone wakes up and they look at their lamps, and the ones who had not put oil in their lamps are now burned out, and they can't see. You've got 5 others who prepared for a delay. This is their virtue. This is what makes them wise, right? What makes them wise is they anticipated that the timeline may not add up to what they thought it was or hoped it would be. The wisdom is that they believed it could take longer than they were told when they made their journey to this wedding ceremony. Their wisdom is in their preparedness, maybe even their over-preparedness. The delay came and they were proven to be wise because they had anticipated the struggle. The other 5 start begging for a little extra oil. And I'm going to tell you, just functionally, I don't understand why they couldn't just give them a little bit of oil. The bridegroom is here. Like, how much longer do we have to make it? But the preparation is the value. The over-preparation, the imagining not everything might go right, the understanding that the bridegroom is coming, will come. The promise of his coming is certain. He will come, we just don't know when. And any hints that these women have aren't enough. The 5 wise ones say, I'm going to prepare to endure a little longer just in case. This is what makes them wise in this text, anticipating the delay. And so, as we understand this to be a parable about the return of Jesus, we can recognize that we can anticipate with certainty that Jesus will return as the bridegroom. And we can await our redemption. We can anticipate it. We can hope for it. We can long for it. We can even count on it. And we know that this redemption will be a redemption from all of the struggles and hurts and pains of our life. The delays when we've asked for help in disease and illness, when we've faced rejection and have longed for wholeness instead, when we have had trouble with family, when we've had trouble a world filled with war, where we have bills that come up and job loss and fear and anxiety. When we have problems, when we have struggles, we can be certain that Jesus will return and will be the redemption of all of the struggle and trial and hurt and grief that we have had. But the point of this text is to say it may not happen before midnight. You may have to prepare yourself for the long run. You may have to work on getting through the trials because Jesus is weighing more than just your problems. Your problems are heavy and they're difficult. They may be unfair and overwhelming. But there's more going into the calculus of the return of Christ than just your struggle, just your pain, just your heartache. But let's remember as well that the story of Jesus is not one that avoids pain or heartache. Jesus himself is born as Emmanuel. He comes in the already of the theme that we're dealing with, and immediately he is born in a manger rather than a room. Immediately, the king starts killing babies and he's in danger. Immediately, he and his family have to sneak out to Egypt and live in exile for the first few years of his life in Egypt. He grows up not in the life of luxury, but he shed heaven for poverty in a backwater town in northern Israel, a place that no one ever thinks of and tax dollars don't funnel their way down to. As he grows up, he finds that he's rejected in public by his friends and family that he knew and grew up with. And then finally, his public ministry that helps so many still results in crucifixion. He's nailed to the cross, holes in his hands and his feet. He bleeds and dies a terrible death. Jesus, the one who is the heir and king of heaven, one day is on a throne and the next day enters into the struggle that you and I know and live every single day. So when we long for redemption, let's not forget that Jesus himself struggled as well. Jesus himself was patient for his own redemption, even patient enough to go to death on the cross. Now, at this time of year, it's not always fun to talk about struggle because Christmas is supposed to be about joy. But at the same time, when we have struggle or grief or pain or loss or hurt or disease at this time of year, sometimes it can feel so isolating and difficult because we look out around a world decorated for joy, where there are parties and fun happening everywhere, and we can feel like we're missing out or being left out. I know that in my own personal life, both of my parents died 1 month in front of Christmas. And that particular Christmas felt so empty and isolating to me. We can carry our griefs and our pains and our losses into this season. And at times, we can look around us and it can seem like the whole world is throwing a party and no one notices the struggle that we're going through. There's been a movement in churches the last few years, which I think is great, to have a separate service or a moment called Blue Christmas, where it confesses and mentions and talks about the grief and the pain that we carry in a season of joy and fun. And while we're not going to have an extra service like that, I thought it'd be good and healthy for us to think about that as we worship today as well. That this particular text lends to us thinking about it, because there's a call to endurance and to prepare for the fact that struggles may come, tension may come, conflict may come between now and when the bridegroom returns and the celebration of the redemption comes. And so part of what endurance looks like isn't just accumulating joy and happiness, because who needs the return of Christ if life is all joy? If this is the pinnacle, then why do we need the redemption of all things? No, instead, we suffer joy and disease and illness and pain along the way. The call to endurance while Jesus is away in this text is a call to endure the very particular pains and struggles that we have in our own life. This year may be a year of death in your family. You may be facing a Christmas without a loved one for a first time. You may have had dreams and goals for 2023 that didn't come about. In fact, life may have turned around and gone backwards on you. You may have a new diagnosis. You may have pain that you can't locate what the problem is. You may have trouble with your family and you're not looking forward at all to going back home and sitting at the same table with your sister or your brother-in-law or whatever it is. These are the things that we're called to have patience through by a text like we've read today. Patience doesn't mean ignoring. Patience doesn't mean pretending like it's not there. Patience means enduring it in healthy ways, coming to grips with it, wrestling with it, spending time with it, struggling with it, not ignoring it, not pretending like it isn't there. But a healthy patience is working through the griefs and struggles and pains that we have in life. And it seems to me in so many ways that this is the wisdom of the text that we've read today. The wise virgins in this story are the ones who prepared for struggle that might come. They looked at the night, all the celebration. They were waiting for the wedding party. They were waiting for the bridegroom to come. They knew that joy was coming, but they thought to themselves, there might be trouble between here and there. Let me think through all I need to do to make sure that I can endure the trouble that's coming. The ones who are foolish, and I got to be honest with you, I think foolish is a pretty harsh label in this particular story. But foolish is what the text calls them. What makes them foolish is not that they didn't show up, not that they didn't anticipate the bridegroom. What makes them foolish is they did nothing to anticipate or to prepare for, to endure the trials that would come. The night gets rough and it gets long, and it never occurred to them that that might be the case. That's what makes them foolish. They're so close to being wise. If the bridegroom is on time, they're wise. They've come to the right place to meet the bridegroom. They're almost wise. What makes them foolish is they think that they'll escape trial and struggle. And instead, the night grows long and cold and dark on them, and they're not ready for that. The ones who are wise are the ones who prepare themselves and are ready and are aware that the struggle is coming. So, when we are processing grief, when we're praying and longing for a move of God, when we're waiting for an answered prayer, it can be so that the last thing we want to hear about is patience. I know that's the case with me. Patience is a struggle for me. But the text today teaches us that in expecting a delay and being prepared for a delay is what constitutes wisdom. Being aware that Jesus might not answer, might not return, might not be back right away, may not fix your problem just because you prayed a really good prayer. That you may have to endure a little longer with struggle, pain, grief, darkness. Being ready and working and planning to endure the delay is what brings about wisdom. And so we live, like I said, in a world that's decorating, that's joyous. There are parties and concerts and things to be at. There's so much joy in the time of Christmas, and I love Christmas time. And your house may be decorated a bit like this. My house is kind of decorated like that, except that the room looks so clean and nice, and I've got kids at home. So it's not too long before my house doesn't look that clean and nice anymore. But there's I love seeing Christmas decorations. I love going to Christmas parties. And when the season is difficult, sometimes the decorations can feel heavy and difficult. Sometimes the grief overwhelms the joy, even in a season as great as Christmas. And so as long as we're talking about wisdom and foolishness, as long as we're talking about anticipating and planning for a delay, I thought I wanted to give you guys a gift as a way to bring that work home with you. So what I thought about is I went to the store and I got blue and gray and silver ornaments for you to take as a gift. And here's what I want you to do with it, if this applies to you at all. If this season is heavy in any sort of way, if there's a grief that comes, if there's a struggle, if there's something that's not right in your soul, if you're longing for a change or something new, or you're dreading something, I invite you, as we sing our final song, to come and to take an ornament and to bring it home with you and to put it somewhere in your decorations at home, because there's joy and beauty and everything in our decorations, but that doesn't always tell the whole story of our season. The truth be told, some of us may be enduring darkness in our life, our soul, our heart. It may not be the whole story, but it sits there. It's a struggle. It's real. And so I'm going to invite you to come and take one of these blue ornaments, almost in the idea of Blue Christmas, and put it somewhere in your decorations at home. Hide it on the back of your tree, or put it somewhere where you can see when you're sitting watching TV, maybe on a garland or something. Just as a reminder that in a world of celebration and joy in this kind of season, that it's okay to have a struggle. That there is a story of endurance that has to emerge out of our lives. That when we look at that, we may be reminded of grief or struggle or hurt or pain or whatever, but see it in the context of the overwhelming joy of Christmas. And recognize that the call of this text isn't to ignore the struggle, not to pretend like it's not there, not to just smile through it all. But the call is to be prepared that Jesus will return, but he will not return on our timetable. So the work we are called to is to process our grief, to work through our grief, to plan, to prepare. And maybe, just maybe, this can be a representation to you throughout random times in your day to just notice and to remember and to recognize. My hope is that it remains a beautiful ornament. So maybe this feels dark in your own soul, but maybe beauty can emerge as well. You can see that the part of your story that you're enduring may be one day a beautiful part of your story, even if today it feels so dark and heavy. And so as we sing this final song, it's a song of celebration. It's a song of joy. I invite you to come and to bring your grief, your story, your illness, your pain, your hurt, whatever it is. Come and take one of these ornaments and figure out a place where you can put it and see and remember the ways in which God can make something beautiful out of even the struggles that we have in life. Because this season is a season of joy because of what God has already done. And as we hold these ornaments representing what we hope God will do, we can remember that we've not yet seen the fullness of God's redemption, but we will if we're patient for it. So would you stand with me and sing this song? And as we sing, please come and take an ornament if you would like.